Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about the two zodiacs that exist, the two main ones that are being used. They're called the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac. The tropical zodiac is what is used in Western astrology primarily, and sidereal zodiac is what's used in Vedic astrology primarily. So I've been doing some research on these two zodiacs, trying to figure out why there's two. And it doesn't really make sense because there's actually one sky with one set of constellations. So why is there two zodiacs that are claiming to be the same information? You know, Aries in both systems is supposed to mean the same thing, but the two zodiacs don't um, match together. They're 24 degrees apart from each other. So I've been doing research on this for a while. I've known about the discrepancy between the two for some time, but I felt like it was time to actually make a video on it, as I've been doing research online and trying to get real information on what's going on and seeing what the status of our understanding is online. So I've been posting things on Quora, clearing up this issue. And in this video, I want to just talk about what are the things that I realized through doing my research on this. So what I found out is the tropical zodiac that's popular in the Western world is actually wrong. It's actually inaccurate to the stars and is therefore not useful information. So there's some reasons why this is, and I'll explain them. So let me just explain what the two zodiacs are. So the sidereal zodiac that's used in Vedic astrology is sidereal means of the stars. So the zodiac actually follows where the constellations go. It keeps the zodiac aligned with the zodiac constellations. And the reason it does this is because that's what the zodiac signs are based on. It's pointing to the stars, and it's always been like that. That's how it was intended in the beginning of astrology, is that these are the constellations. So that's exactly what the sidereal zodiac shows. It shows where the constellations are and where the planets are among these constellations. So what that means is, if you look at your Vedic chart and your sun's in Leo, then the sun was actually in the constellation of Leo when you were born. So it's actually showing what was going on. So it's an important zodiac to use because the tropical zodiac is not aligned with the stars anymore. It used to be. So I'll explain why that is. So the tropical zodiac was created about like 150 CE, roughly around that time, and so that was about 2,000 years ago. And during that time, it was visible that the sun went into the constellation of Aries on the date of the spring equinox. So what happened was they started associating the spring equinox with 0 degrees Aries. They just said, okay, the spring equinox is today. We'll say that that's 0 degrees Aries because we can look up right now and that's exactly what we see. So that's how they created the tropical zodiac. And part of that it actually became an issue is they were believing that the zodiac signs were aligned with the seasons. So they said Aries is the beginning of spring because it happens right when the spring equinox happens. So it's the beginning of spring, and then all the signs after that follow accordingly. So Taurus is like halfway into spring. Then Gemini is the end of spring, and then Cancer is the beginning of summer, and so on. But I'll explain why that actually doesn't make sense. So the issue was the tropical zodiac used to be accurate when it was first created, like I explained. It was the sun was in Aries, the beginning of Aries, on the March equinox, March 21st, spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. So what happened is there's something called the precession of the equinox that happens. So the equinox point is actually going backwards. It's precessing through the zodiac signs backwards by 1 degree every 72 years. And the reason this happens is because the planet is spinning like a top because of the gravitational forces of the sun and moon pulling on the equator, the equatorial bulge. So what's happening is the whole planet is wobbling very slowly, 1 degree backwards through the zodiac every 72 years. And that's actually the origin of the different ages that we live in. So like right now, we're in the age of Pisces because during the equinox, the sun is in Pisces. So we're in the age of Pisces. And coming up, we'll be in the age of Aquarius because it'll precess 6 degrees back even further and enter Aquarius. So that's where the ages come from. It comes from this precession that we experience. So the issue is that it's now out of touch by 24 degrees. So it's not 0 degrees Aries anymore on the March equinox. Instead, it's 6 degrees Pisces. It's gone back 24 degrees. And it's going to go further back, like I'm saying, by 1 degree every 72 years. So the sun actually is moving its location through, it's the dates of the sun signs is going to shift every 72 years like a day. So there's actually different, sun sign dates in Sidereal Zodiac that I want to just share with you guys because this might shock some of you guys if you don't know the sidereal dates. So Aries actually starts April 14th, Taurus May 15th, Gemini June 15th, Cancer July 17th, Leo August 17th, Virgo September 17th, Libra October 17th, Scorpio November 16th, Sagittarius December 16th, Capricorn January 14th, Aquarius February 13th, and Pisces March 15th. So they all are in those signs for a month, but those are all the start dates for each of the different signs. So it's a little different. I posted this on my blog. There's a video, an image of the dates, so you guys can refer to that. But yeah, so getting back to the tropical zodiac, some people say that it was aligned with the seasons, but that's not true because it's clearly that they wanted it to be aligned with the constellations. It's just gone out of touch because of precession that they didn't account for. So, but let's just say that it was intended to be aligned with the seasons only and not with the stars, which is a weird thing to say, but let's just say that that's the case. So Aries would be the beginning of spring, right? Well, that's actually not fully true because there's 2 hemispheres. It's actually spring in the northern hemisphere on March 21st. And the seasons, since they're opposite in the southern hemisphere, it's actually fall. So it's 2 seasons at once all the time. So you can't say that spring or that Aries is the beginning of spring because it's also the beginning of fall. And Cancer is the beginning of summer, but it's also the beginning of winter. So it doesn't make any sense. You know, why would you be paying attention only to the northern hemisphere, saying that, you know, it's spring that's only applies to the northern hemisphere? It just doesn't make any sense. And the reason why they assign it to the northern hemisphere is because that's all that Ptolemy, the astrologer who basically founded Western astrology, he didn't know about the southern hemisphere. He just thought spring was spring everywhere. So it was a mistake. He was believing that spring happened everywhere, and he thought that the zodiac signs somehow represented the seasons or were correlated with the seasons. But this isn't true because of Procession, because now it's in Pisces on the March 21st when it enters spring. So are you going to say that Pisces is the beginning of spring instead of Aries? I mean, I guess you could, but then it would switch all the locations of the other zodiac signs, so there would be all different seasons than it was before. And then it's going to process even more. So soon it's going to be in Aquarius. So then are you going to say that Aquarius is the beginning of spring? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So overall, the tropical zodiac is not aligned to anything, really. It's not aligned to the seasons or to the constellations. It's just frozen in time from the time it was created. It's reflecting what the sky looked like, where the stars were 2,000 years ago, not where it is today. So it's inaccurate, and it was actually inaccurate ever since it was created. Only, because it shifts 1 degree every 72 years. After, a couple hundred years, then you're like looking up and seeing that the sun is not in Aries anymore, it's in Pisces. And then that's a big oops, but that's actually what happened. And this whole time, we haven't had the history behind it or the explanation why the tropical zodiac became what it is. But that's where it came from. So it's just an inaccurate thing. It was frozen in time with the sky 2,000 years ago, and now it no longer applies at all. So it's not actually a calculation showing something else. It's not like it's aligned to the seasons and that the seasons somehow tell us something more physical about ourselves or more about our free will or something like that. Like the tropical zodiac signs, like the charts, the Western charts, don't show any like particular information based on the tropical signs. Like, that's not any new information. It's just an inaccurate calculation. That's all it is. So the problem is the whole Western world is using the Western astrology, and they're identifying with their sun signs, but their sun signs are actually most likely the sign before. So, like Kanye West thinks he's a Gemini, but he's a Taurus. And Britney Spears thinks that she's a Sagittarius, but she's a Scorpio sun. Like stuff like this. It's a big problem. So everybody is following the Western, but they didn't know the origin of it or why it's not accurate anymore. So, that's really the situation. You know, it got out of alignment a long time ago, and it's not showing anything anymore. And it's not even a reflection of the seasons. So it's a problem, and we have to start, getting serious about what we're choosing for our zodiac sign. I mean, what we're identifying with for our which system we're using and everything. So, Vedic astrology is much superior to Western astrology because it has such a longer history, and it's been uninterrupted. It's just been built upon this whole time. So it's just gotten stronger and stronger. And it has, things that the Western astrology doesn't have, like the nakshatras, which are the sub-constellations inside the signs. And there's the dashas, which is the periods, where what you can find out what planet is operating and influencing you at a certain time. And there's the divisional charts, which show different aspects of your life. It could be like the marriage chart or the career chart. And there's GEMINI karakas, which are the planets that tell you which one's like your soul planet and which one's your partner's planet and what that represents and all this stuff. Like there's so much in Vedic astrology that is much more advanced than what Western has to provide. So, like the thing that I'm seeing is like happening in the future is probably Vedic astrology is going to be a more popular thing than it was. It's like getting traction, and people will find out that the tropical zodiac is actually wrong, and we'll be moving further into like learning about Vedic astrology because it has such a deep spiritual history tied to it. It's been used by sages for thousands of years. It could be like 10,000 years old, and somehow they knew about the precession of the equinoxes this whole time, and have been able to keep the zodiac accurate. So I mean, people have to start switching over to Sidereal Zodiac if they want to use Western for some reason. Maybe they like the outer planets, but you can still use the outer planets in your Vedic chart too. I mean, there's apps that allow that, so you can totally study the outer planets in a Vedic astrology app. But some people just are used to what the Western chart looks like, maybe, and if they started using the Sidereal Zodiac, they'll get much better results for sure. I mean, I think the equal house system is important too, because that's how the houses are supposed to match with the signs, because they're both 30 degrees, so they perfectly overlap. So the Vedic astrology is much more advanced, and I feel like since people are really starting to focus on spirituality deeper, they might start finding out about Vedic astrology and seeing how it really applies to our lives, and it talks about our life themes and like karmic issues that we're dealing with, all of our struggles, and makes it very clear what's going on. Once you start studying what the planets mean and when they're ruling certain houses or when they're placed with other planets, all this means something. So it'll catch on at some point, but it's a ways away, because you look online on like Wikipedia and it has the tropical zodiac dates on the chart instead of the sidereal dates. So the Western world is still, there's like a bunch of websites that have a database of people's charts, like celebrities' charts, and they're all using the tropical zodiac calculations. So you have to change it to sidereal, and some websites even like suggest like you might not like this if you go into sidereal zodiac. It's controversial or whatever. Let's say stuff like that. So like it's funny that that's how it is. Like people are not willing to open up to see what sidereal is about. I mean, it's about the stars, and that's what astrology is based on, the constellations. The zodiac is the constellations. It's not the seasons of the northern hemisphere. That just doesn't make any sense. So that's basically it. I mean, that's the situation. I mean, I did some research on this. The best article I found talking about this issue about sidereal versus tropical is this from this book right here. It's an Introduction to Western Sidereal Astrology by Kenneth Bowser. He has a chapter in his appendix that talks deeply about the tropical zodiac and tries to sort out what was going on with it. And basically, all the information that I gave here is what he talked about too. So that's it. I mean, it sucks because the whole Western world is using the tropical zodiac, but it's been inaccurate all this time, and people are just haven't been willing to look at the evidence and really figure out what actually happened. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I mean, I just wanted to make it very clear to everybody that the tropical zodiac is actually wrong, and it's not showing anything. It's not some special extra information. It was just frozen in time to arbitrary time in the early first millennium CE. And so that's, that's the situation. So, I mean, we have to start using the Sidereal Zodiac. I mean, there's no other way about it. I mean, I think people will be happy to find out that they're getting more accurate information if they start using Sidereal. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I guess that's everything I wanted to say for that. I've been talking about this for a lot. I've been doing going on Quora and talking about this issue. So it's a lot that needs to be said. I mean, this needs to be repeated a lot, I'm sure, so people get it, so they really understand. But yep, that's it. Tropical Zodiac is wrong. We have to use Sidereal. I mean, there's no other way about it. I mean, you can choose to believe whatever you want. I mean, if you want, you can say you can believe you're any sign. I mean, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I mean, if you're going by tropical, you're identifying with the wrong one most of the time because there's a 24-degree difference. So anyway, there's so much to learn in Vedic astrology, and there's so much to talk about, and this is just like the first issue to deal with. We just have to raise awareness about Vedic astrology because it's such a more superior system. So yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening.